Hello and welcome back. Today I'm asking the question, if they know the sounds, why doesn't their reading flow? This is all about rhythm as the missing bridge between decoding and fluent reading. So based on 25 years of working with children who are not reading with fluency or reading for pleasure, I know that they are frustrated and they want honest answers that will explain the disconnect that they experience when they're reading. These are the questions that they would love to ask. What is the point of reading if it feels so effortful? And why are you asking me to read when reading is just so pointless? By the age of 8, children realise that their experience of reading is not rewarding. They begin to compare themselves to others in their class and they see themselves as different. They know that they do not relate to a text in the same way as their friends. This is a part of the problem, but beneath the surface there is another difference. Their experience of rhythm is also different. It was more than 25 years ago when teachers at a primary school in Hertfordshire asked me to work with a group of upper Key Stage 2 children who were often excluded and were years behind expectation. The usual ways of teaching had not worked in school, and I soon discovered that my own teaching was not working either. It was only when they told me that they loved football that I imagined I might have a chance of achieving something if I worked with their feet. It turned out that rhythm-based movement was key to unlocking their learning, and this turned into a pattern when I tried the same approach with other children who did not learn in the conventional ways. As we can see from observing these children, they know their letters and their sounds, and they can interact well with their peers. They can also listen intently in class and follow a story when their teacher reads to them. They are, however, using different mechanisms, and professional noticing attests to this. These children watch facial expression and they listen to the timbre in the voice with exquisite attention to detail. When they don't follow the gist, they may mask their confusion with smiles or create diversions or animate the energy in the room in their own way. They are sensitive to social cues and they build strong bonds with others through humour, affection, and helpfulness. These coping strategies may manifest in a different form for neurodivergent children who may be experiencing emotional and sensory sensitivity in addition to language processing challenges. Even though we've had decades of research and initiatives, we've missed this important key element in our understanding of reading development. If language processing is weak, additional cues are required for reading. You might be wondering why this pattern even exists and why rhythm might be involved in teaching and learning. Even after all these years, did reading experts overlook a vital missing link in the teaching of reading? Many schools focus heavily on phonics in early years and Key Stage 1, but fluency gets less structured attention. Since the Rose Review in 2006, an emphasis on teaching phonemes, the smallest sounds of language, has transformed early reading instruction. After at least 15 years of explicit phonics teaching, we might expect more children and young people to be reading with confidence and enjoyment, but many are not. Although reading for pleasure is associated with reading fluency, the link is not causal. Children who read fluently enjoy reading, but reading with enjoyment does not amount to fluency. A wave of reading for pleasure is moving through schools at the moment and seems to involve everyone in a well-intended gesture towards equality and inclusion. But should schools expect children to read for pleasure when they do not even derive meaning from print? Fluent readers know that reading is a powerful skill that they can deploy to unlock strange and mysterious texts, whether fiction or non-fiction. A non-fluent reader will feel the same degree of curiosity, but use their powers of guessing, inferring, and interpreting contextual cues to translate images, graphics, and illustrations into a meaningful narrative. We can manipulate the reading for pleasure slogan to involve everyone by widening our definitions of reading, but this would not narrow the gap. Let's acknowledge that if these children interact by using contextual cues to supplement their language processing, it follows that they would also need explicit support for the development of their reading fluency. If we expect their reading skills to bootstrap onto a weak language processing system, we have set them up to fail. This is the structural gap in the system, and making reading fun will only trivialize the issue. And not only that, but it will also aggravate the problem. Rhythm underpins the mechanisms of the brain, including language processing and reading fluency. Researchers have even established that a neural overlap exists between phonemic awareness and rhythmic awareness. There are two possible explanations for the overlap. One is that both phonemes and rhythm are processed in the same way, and the other that inhibitory control is shared by the mechanisms that activate both phonemic and rhythmic awareness. During the sensitive time window of language acquisition in the first 5 years of a child's development, it is possible that phonemes that are not perceived clearly enough during this period are not available to the child subsequently. And if this child has an incomplete repertoire of sounds, they will rely much more on contextual cues, and they may conflate similar sounding phonemes throughout life unless they learn about the missing sounds through specific multisensory techniques. A child with gaps in phonemic awareness is likely to have weak sensitivity to rhythm and to experience a double disadvantage. If the smallest sounds of language were not comprehensively laid down in infancy, access to automaticity which underpins fluent reading will be incomplete. The good news is that a child's sensitivity to rhythm is not limited by a developmental time window, as the rhythms play an adaptive role in our responses to situations in everyday life, from the way we walk and run and chew food to the way we communicate with each other. A body of evidence has accumulated since Heb, showing that the timing of neurons really matters. Cells that fire together wire together, and well-controlled studies of musical training, which involves the precision in terms of timing and pitch, have been shown to support phonological discrimination. Timing and rhythm are essential for learning new skills involving movement and coordination, such as riding a bicycle, driving a car, or typing. Rhythm, too, can be taught in the same way. Eye movements across the line of text on the page require coordination. Just as we assimilate the flow of scenery as we ride, run, or drive forwards, our eyes are anticipating what is coming up next in our reading. Many years ago, teachers would speak of students who were reading word by word or barking at print. Although this type of language has fallen out of use, the problem remains. When reading does not flow, each syllable protrudes in the same abrupt way that it always did. The natural shading and shaping that we identify in fluent reading as sounding natural and more like speech is missing. The more subtle qualities of fluent reading are not well understood, partly because we have for too long been focused on social disadvantage and cultural sensitivity and phonemes. However, if we now identify the meta level of reading, meaning the syntax, the morphology, and the subtle rhythmic cues within them, we may at last narrow the gaps that, left unaddressed, widen over time. We do not need to actually teach any of these meta cues explicitly because they are already part of the language processing system, and they vary between communities anyway. So what are the practical action steps that do make a difference? So first, we must target those who are not reading fluently in line with expectation, and also the children who can decode but do not read with understanding. All new skills develop through repetition and practice, and this is rhythm-based learning in action. When a child has phonemic gaps in their natural language processing system, a rhythm-based approach supplements and complements traditional phonics-based teaching. A rhythm-based intervention requires an inclusive response and sensitivity on the part of everyone involved if we are to strengthen responses at the millisecond level. This is delicate and dedicated work that can transform children's reading after only a few short sessions, and in which teachers build children's sensitivity to rhythm, syntax, and meaning through movement control, rhythmic precision, and reading. So here's what this looks like in practice. Imagine for a moment the children for whom teachers have most concern. They're reading simple musical notation and moving in time to background music. The music is age appropriate, specially commissioned and written to my own research brief. Their focus, as the children put it, has never been so concentrated. The transition from decoding to fluency is smooth in children who process phonemic-graphemic correspondence by bootstrapping print onto a strong language processing system that became well-defined in their infancy. But for children for whom there are gaps or weak definition of phonemic awareness, rhythm-based learning is the bridge between language processing, fluency, and comprehension. You might be wondering to what extent a rhythm-based program could actually work. The significant effect of rhythm-based exercises on reading comprehension and fluency is robust in low-retaining readers, with statistically significant findings that have been published in peer-reviewed academic journals. Among low-retaining readers with gaps that unaddressed widen over time, rhythm-based intervention helps children to catch up with others, to enjoy reading and to see themselves as readers. This is exactly what happened to the group of children who inspired this approach more than 25 years ago. In terms of gains in comprehension, using the NARA2, there are 3 levels of progress. The largest is of at least 24 months equivalent gain in reading comprehension. The medium-sized gain is 12 to 23 months in reading comprehension, and the smaller gain is 1 to 11 months in reading comprehension gain. The large gains are seen in children with a reading accuracy age of 8 years or more. The smaller gains are seen in children with a baseline reading accuracy age of between 6 and 7 years, but there are also significant gains in phonological blending when phonemic awareness at baseline is weak. These gains happen after only 10 weekly sessions of 10 minutes. Let's just think for a moment about the research landscape. Although we cannot peer into the brains of our students and figure out what works and what does not work, we can infer from observation and evidence-based approaches how to address widening gaps in attainment. When teachers speak about mixed findings in the broader power of music literature, they are correct. Researchers often define child participants by age, but no other parameter. And if they are already sensitive to phonemes and rhythm and reading well, they do not make gains in reading during an intervention. I established this distinction early on in my own research. If a study does not specify the type of musical training that the children receive, and many of them do not, then these methodological factors also contribute to the mixed picture and underscore the importance of targeted, precise, evidence-based implementation. If you're thinking about the children in your school right now, you're welcome to download the free PDF about the neural overlap between rhythm and phonemic awareness. And this explains how rhythm scaffolds the important step between decoding and fluent reading. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.